In some ways, Sacramento State's plans to enter the fray that is FBS football is similar to seeing Sting rappel down from the rafters and chase off the NWO. It's exciting, it gives you hope that the soul of college football hasn't been lost just yet, but deep down inside, knowing the history of Sacramento State athletics, I cannot help but think we'll end up with some bullshit Starcade 1997 finish that sees the Hornets win, but not really win. Before we jump into that, first credit where credit is due. Sac State President Luke Wood, the Sac-12 committee, everyone who has managed to get these efforts to elevate Sacramento State athletics. It has taken a hell of a lot just to get this effort, this movement off the ground. While so many universities operate with the plodding reactive protectionism that sees opportunities scurry away like wild turkeys just about everywhere in Sacramento these days, those at Sac State are striking while the iron is hot. I've said here on this channel, Sac State is having a moment. Look, I'm not an alumni, I didn't attend the school, but as a Sacramento sports fan, it would be nice for us to have a seat at the table that is college football, college basketball, both men's and women's, for us to have a presence at the highest levels, or at least the higher levels. If the school was ever going to do something athletically to make that a reality, now was certainly the time. The Pac-12 Mountain West Conference debacle, and make no mistake, that has been an unforced error of epic proportions that leaves both weakened and worse off than they were before. It has at least given the plucky upstart Hornets a foot in the door. But having a foot in the door and kicking your way, pushing your way through that door are two entirely different things. Look, it is absolutely wild CSUS has gotten that far, and props to them. I would have assumed the closest the Hornets would have ever gotten to the Mountain West or Pac-12 or anything of the sorts was the NCAA football 2005 save I had, where I led Sacramento State to back-to-back national championships. Glory days at Hornet Stadium indeed. That is fantasy, although it is somewhat closer to becoming a reality. I don't see USC ever traveling to play at Sacramento State, but hey, who knows? While it is very easy to get excited about these ambitious plans and what could take place at CSUS, the transformation of its athletics and the university profile as a whole, there is something worth mentioning here. Nothing tangible has taken place. Everything so far is still, there's nothing physical, there's nothing to grab hold of just yet. There are also some huge red flags that may turn these Pac-12 plans or Mountain West plans, FBS plans, whatever the end goal is here, into nothing more than a pipe dream. And let's talk about the largest plan of them all, a brand new Hornet Stadium. Let's be real, these renderings are nothing more than having something to show potential donors or potential investors. I don't think the final stadium is going to resemble this. I mean, it may bear a passing resemblance to it, but we're still a ways away from knowing what the final facility would look like. That being said, let's give credit to the Hornets for putting in more time and resources to have these renderings created than the Oakland A's did with their first set of renderings for that Las Vegas ballpark. Heyo! The concern I have as it relates to the potential new stadium is funding, more specifically asking students to chip in to help build this new stadium. Historically speaking, the CSUS student body has had zero interest in hiking up their fees to help build new sports facilities. There is a reason, after all, why the Sacramento State Hornets basketball teams still play in the wildly inadequate Hornets nest. This has not been for a lack of trying, it is for a lack of student support and pushback over the years. This will undoubtedly be a problem. Now, how big of a problem that is remains to be seen. Maybe Sac State administration has its finger on the pulse of the student body and knows, or at least really is very optimistic, they can push this through with limited pushback from students. On the other hand, it is very easy to see a majority of students at a notorious commuter campus revolt and just throwing a spanner into the works of these new stadium plans. That's why Sac State should have probably just avoided asking students altogether. Don't give them a chance to derail this. I mean, you're already going out and raising all of this NIL money. Maybe just look to find a couple of more pledges that you can divert over to having the new stadium built. Better yet, how about offering Kevin Nagel those summer dates for the Sac Republic in exchange for some financial support that would allow this stadium project to get off the ground? Oh, what's that? Nagel's too busy running Huddersfield Town into the ground? Fair enough. As for the new Sacramento State football stadium, the new Hornet Stadium, I'm not saying it isn't possible. But there are some gaping holes in the funding that need to be figured out, and fast. By including a student fee increase as part of this plan, well, you're really exponentially increasing the chances of its failure. The goal should be controlling what you can control at Sac State, and the reaction to the student body on raising their fees is not one of those things. There are also the plans for Sacramento State men's and women's basketball that need to be discussed here as well, because these kind of scare me. So work on a new basketball facility at the Well, the school student wellness center, was supposed to begin sometime during the fall semester. The status of this is uncertain, and the box area where the event center is supposed to be going may actually still be open. I can't quite put all of these pieces to the puzzle yet, so if you know, please let me know in the comments section below. Even if work has started on that and it's being built, this is not an acceptable Pac-12 or Mountain West facility, and the Hornets' Nest is certainly not acceptable for either of those conferences. The proposed solution? Well, the Sacramento Kings have announced that CSU could use the Golden One Center for basketball home games. What wasn't so clear when Chris Haynes announced this on Twitter was who is covering the costs of this. Like, are the Kings going to charge Sac State to use it? And even if it's free, who is on the hook for operating costs to run such an expensive building? That is money someone will need to eat. Yes, those Gonzaga games are going to do okay at the gate, but who else is really a draw here? Let me clarify here. I have zero concerns about Sacramento State playing on an off-campus facility. As I said earlier, it's a commuter school. People who are going to Sacramento State basketball games will be just as willing to drive down to the G1C as they are to the Sacramento State campus. What worries me, though, is how the school is going to get 2,000 people to games at an arena that sits 16,000. I assume they'll just tarp off the upper deck, but you're still looking at 8,000-9,000 seats there. Better yet, what's the break-even point for operating the building? There's a lot of questions here that need to be addressed. For this to work, the Kings cannot charge Sac State to play at the G1C. The team can have the parking and the concessions money, that's fine, but the Hornets can't afford a decade of losing money on rent, and they're going to be there for at least that amount of time if the school is also working on building a new football stadium on campus. They're not going to have parallel paths where they're building a new football stadium and a new on-campus basketball facility. And if the team can't draw at the G1C, even in the Mountain West or Pac-12, well, paying rent for that is not going to be the greatest idea. How do you get this to work? Here's my idea. The Hornets should not charge people to attend basketball games, both men's and women's, at the Golden One Center. That's also why they shouldn't be on the hook for rent to the Kings when they use the facility. At least I'm talking general admission wise, and there are a few exceptions I do want to point out as well. First, select games would be behind a paywall. Gonzaga, UC Davis, Fresno State, Nevada. If you have a high-profile non-conference opponent come in, you would want to charge folks to see that as well. But by and large, the average run-of-the-mill Mountain West or Pac-12 game, your Utah State at Sac State, whatever the case may be, it should be free for the public to attend if they want to go. Additionally, premium seating, luxury boxes, these are all still going to be paid for as well. You can't have randos coming off the street, sitting down courtside, although you could probably do that at Hornet Stadium these days. You get the idea here, though. There's still some attempts to generate revenue, but why bother charging Joe Schmo $10 or $15 to see a game they probably don't want to pay to see anyway? The entire premise of what Sac State should be doing here is building that fan base, getting people to care about their athletic teams. Free is a great way to start that process. I'm not saying this would be a forever thing. I'm not saying this would go on for eternity, but what I am saying is those first few years, as Sac State's really trying to connect with the local community for their men's and women's basketball teams, make it free and make sure the Kings aren't trying to nickel and dime Sac State out of rent to use the building. The end goal here is get people in to see the team, convert them into fans, and have them be willing to pay more down the road. Eyeballs on the Hornets product are all that matter right now. Make it accessible. And for the Kings, even if they don't charge Sac State rent, they still have ways to make a little money to maybe even break even for themselves. Like I said, on parking, on concessions, stuff like that. It doesn't need to be a money loser for them, but if they are simply just offering the Hornets some dates that they're going to charge them for, what are we even doing here? I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and you know what? I do believe Sacramento State can solve its sporting facilities issues. The football, the basketball stuff, there's a lot of wiggle room here, but it's doable. However, it is what the school doesn't control that really concerns me most about Sacramento State's plans. There's a question here that I don't know is being discussed enough, and that is, are FBS teams and FBS conferences telling the Mountain West and the Pac-12, the newly reformed Pac-12, to not recruit FCS schools, to not try to get these schools to move up a level? This has been hinted at in recent times, and while everyone was fantasy booking half the Big Sky and the Dakota schools moving on up, only Sac State has taken anything resembling a tangible step, and the school has seemingly been met with indifference by both the Pac-12 and Mountain West. In some regards, I get the response. Everything Sac State is doing right now is very much in the realm of the hypothetical. It's not real. Let the university pay the $5 million fee to move up from FCS to FBS, and then you sort of start seeing where they fit in. See if they're serious about all of these stated ambitions. Then again, if you are those in charge of CSUS, you would have at least liked to hear some form of public encouragement about your plans, a seal of approval, something that leads you to believe that what you're doing is not all for naught. Instead, there seems to be more interest in MAC schools than Sac State, which, by the way, is an awful idea. Northern Illinois left the MAC before things went extremely poorly. They found themselves in the Big West Conference for a few seasons and then went back to the MAC with their tail between their legs, realizing this is the college football conference, this is the college conference where the school belongs. All of this leads me to believe those in charge of the FBS, those running the show that is top flight college football, do not want any more mouths to feed. They don't want any more schools coming up taking a cut of their pie. Now, they legally can't do anything to stop this from happening, but something here just seems amiss. Something here doesn't feel quite right. To that end, do the Hornets move up? If the options are Conference USA, or if that's not even on the table, it's being an FBS independent. That is not what anyone signed up for when they made pledges for NIL or the new stadium. The goal, the stated goal, was the Pac-12. The unstated goal, the fallback option, was the Mountain West Conference. At least that's what we sort of believe right now. But Conference USA, an independent as an FBS, are those really better than life in the Big Sky? I don't know if I have an answer to that question. Even if nothing happens as it relates to good old CSUS and the FBS, they have, at the very least, turned the tables on their longtime rivals. UC Davis, the school probably best equipped in the Sacramento Valley to move up, seems to be reeling, seems to have been left on their heels, almost blindsided by what has taken place on the other side, the east side of the causeway. Their director of athletics, Rocco DeLuca, sent out a call to arms email basically stating people kept asking him if the Aggies are going to move to FBS, but that's not even a possibility if no one puts up the cash for a move. DeLuca also claimed that the Aggies' game day atmosphere has been second to none this season, which is only true if you love hip-hop from about 2004 to 2007. Thankfully, I do. They played the full version of Laffy Taffy by D4L after Idaho's loss to UC Davis a few weekends ago. It kind of made me forget about my beloved Vandals losing.
Laffy Taffy. Shake that Laffy Taffy, girl, shake that Laffy Taffy.
Oh, what are we doing here? Well, since you are here, I guess I can tell you that in 2007, the Guinness Book of World Records listed Laffy Taffy by D4L as the most downloaded song of all time. Shout out LimeWire, I guess. Thankfully, you don't need to illegally download it or download it at all. If you want to hear it, just go to the next UC Davis home game. Back to the topic here, those Aggies seem to have been shocked by the speed and focus of which Sac State has acted with. As I mentioned, for the longest time, it seemed if either one of these former Division II rivals were to move to FBS, UC Davis would have been the ones to do so. Now, well, Maggie the Aggie and Red the Horse have been left in the dust. Or have they? It's very possible that all of these plans laid out by Sacramento State do not come to fruition. The easy part is saying something you want to do. It's throwing out goals. The difficult part is executing that. That's especially true given the current state of college football. The college football landscape is the Sandopolis Zone 1 level from Sonic 3 come to life, and those running Sac State can't use the Knuckles cartridge and nerf the damn thing either. Maybe Sacramento State's FBS ambitions are nothing more than a pipe dream, but as a Northern Californian who hates driving to Palo Alto, I'll dream that pipe dream. We in Northern California have seen so many schools punt on college football since 1990 that it's just nice. It's refreshing to see one of these schools try to make it work at a higher level, to show a dream and ambition, just something tangible, something we haven't seen in decades now. Those in charge of Sac State are genuinely committed to giving this a go. If the school fails, it will not be for a lack of effort or desire or even vision. Quite frankly, seeing Sac State try and fail would be better than the university simply spinning its wheels athletically for the decades to come, as it sort of has been since it moved up to Division I. There's never been a plan in place, and normally it's just seeing their teams sort of root around the bottom of their conferences, except for this recent stretch of football in the Ricky Ray, Charles Roberts teams of the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, if you want to talk about one of the worst stretches of college sports of all time, go look at what Sac State basketball, men's basketball, did when they moved up to Division I. It was 10 years of terribleness. Shout out Tom Abetamarco. Even if those plucky Hornets don't make it to the Pac-12, fall short of the Mountain West, and can't even reach the FBS, even if that new football stadium ends up being nothing more than a few shiny renderings and basketball plays at a makeshift home and a student wellness center, Sac State did what many other schools haven't had the courage to do: try. And for that, I give them a hearty stingers up. What will happen to Sac State over the next year or so? I don't think any of us know, but it's a story, an ambition that we can all get behind. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to hear the story of the fall of football in the Big West Conference, video lower right hand corner of your screen, and to understand why Chicago State now finally not being the worst college basketball team in America is an accomplishment in and of itself, video upper right hand corner. Until next time, I am Cheyenne Hollis. This is The Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out to the 25. That Laffy Taffy. That Laffy Taffy.
That Laffy Taffy, girl, shake that Laffy Taffy.